Now, what do you think is worse in retirement? Is it a large portfolio decrease or a large spending increase? If you had to choose between a 10 to 20% portfolio decline right before retirement or a 10 to 20% increase in retirement spending, what do you think is worse? Intuitively, we might think that a large portfolio decline is the worst thing that can happen in the beginning of retirement, but in this video, I'm going to show you why a spending increase of 10 to 20% is much worse than a large portfolio decline. So let's get an intuitive sense of why spending is so important in retirement. We're going to start with a simple example, and at the end of the video, I'm going to show you a more detailed example. So here we've got Marlene and Bert. Their portfolio is about $750,000 at the start of retirement. They're both 65, and their target retirement spending is $75,000 a year in retirement. Very reasonable. Portfolio decline of 10 to 20% would represent a decrease in their portfolio of anywhere from $75,000 to $150,000 in the beginning of retirement. So fairly impactful, fairly worrisome. But a spending increase of 10 to 20%, well, that represents an increase of spending every year of $7,500 to $15,000 a year for Marlene and Bert. Now, to support that spending in retirement, if it was all in a TFSA, they would need investment assets of $187,000 to $375,000 in a TFSA using the 4% rule. So to support that extra $7,500 a year to $15,000 a year, they need quite a bit more investment assets. And already you can see this is larger than the spending decrease numbers we saw just a moment ago. So already you can get an intuitive sense of why spending is such an important lever in retirement. Now, if we go to another example where the assets are not in a TFSA, but they're in an RSP, when those assets are withdrawn, they incur a 30% tax rate. So in this example, if the assets are in RSP, Marlene and Bert need even more investment assets to support that extra retirement spending, anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 in extra investment assets just to support that spending increase. So you can really get a intuitive sense of why spending is so important. Now, there are a few different ways that retirement spending can increase. So the first one is just maybe there wasn't a great retirement budget to begin with. So maybe there were certain categories missing from the original budget, or maybe infrequent expenses like vehicle repairs, home repairs, vehicle replacement just weren't budgeted for. And so that can increase retirement spending. Now, the other way retirement spending can increase if just there's an increase in expenses in retirement. So for example, say you're an individual, you're living in a condo and you're spending $35,000 a year in retirement, and all of a sudden condo fees go up $200 to $300 a month over the course of a few years. That could easily increase retirement spending by 10%. Now, the other way retirement spending could increase is if there's a health concern or a disability. So extra spending on prescription drugs, specialist visits, in-home care can quickly increase retirement spending. Now, the last way is if there's an inflation. Now, even modest inflation can impact retirees differently. So depending on your particular spending, inflation can impact you more than someone else. So that's the other way that retirement spending can increase. Now let's take a look at a more detailed example of how retirement spending can impact a retirement plan. Okay, so let's go through a more detailed example. So we've got Marlene and Bert here again, and they want to spend $75,000 a year in retirement. And that income is going to come from a couple different sources. So we've got CPP, old age security, their RSP assets, their registered assets, and a little bit from their tax-free savings account. Now, Bert's also got a pension that's inflation adjusted. It provides $18,000 a year in retirement income. So as we can already see, they've already got a good base level of retirement income from CPP and old age security, providing about $35,000 a year in income. And then they've got Bert's pension as well, but they're still withdrawing $22,000, $23,000 a year from the RSP and about $6,000 a year from the TFSA. So combined about $29,000 a year from their investment assets. Now that already kind of points out one of the factors, one of the reasons why spending more in retirement is so impactful is that if they spend more in retirement, it's the investment portfolio that needs to pick up the slack. So if they spend another $7,500 a year, $15,000 a year, that withdrawal from the investment portfolio goes from $29,000, $30,000 a year, and it goes much higher, much faster. So here in this example, we've got their net worth. It does decline slightly over time, but they still have a little bit of wiggle room at the end of retirement. And their success rate's fairly good, so 72%. There is a bit of a risk of running out of money in their late 80s, early 90s, but they still have their home to fall back on, So they're fairly secure in this initial retirement scenario. Now let's flip over to the next scenario, which includes a $7,500 increase in retirement spending every year. Already we can see that the success rate has dropped to 41%. So spending's a little bit higher. There's a risk of running out of money later in retirement. Their income, now they're drawing more from the investment portfolio. So now we're above $30,000 a year in withdrawals. And again, their success rate has gone down. So 41% success rate. Now that's just a 10% increase in retirement spending. So going from $75,000 a year, Marlene and Bert are now spending $82,500 a year. Let's see what happens if they go up 20% in spending. So they're going another $15,000 a year in retirement spending, up to $90,000 a year. And here the success rate is quite low. So 24% success rate. If we look at spending, there's a risk of having a shortfall very early in retirement. Their income, very large withdrawals now from RSP and TFSA. And then eventually, if we look at net worth, eventually they run out of financial assets. So this really highlights the impact that spending can have on a retirement plan. The portfolio just can't support this extra level of retirement spending. And if we look at success rate, 24% success rate is quite low. I wouldn't feel comfortable retiring with a success rate that low. And so Marlene and Bert really need to understand, is $75,000 a year the right number for their retirement spending? Because there's just not a lot of wiggle room for them to absorb a spending increase. My name is Owen. I'm an advice-only financial planner, a CFP, and I'm the founder of planeasy.ca. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe and hit the little bell notification icon. We're coming out with a new video every week. Thanks for watching.